Hey guys, how's it going? Ed here with another fragrance review, and today I'm going to be reviewing Uomo Intense Eau de Parfum by Valentino. Now, this is a very popular fragrance within the community, both here on YouTube and further afield on forums like Base Notes and Fragrantica. But when I review a fragrance, regardless of whether it's new or old or hyped or designer or niche or indie or vintage or whatever, I try to avoid being swayed by hype and by hive mind groupthink mentality and arrive at my own conclusion. Now, if my opinion happens to coincide with others or is radically different, then that's simply a result of my own personal experience. I also try to hold every fragrance that I review or do a first impressions on to the same standards, regardless of what it is that I'm smelling. So, with that being said, let's get into the review. Valentino's Uomo Intense opens on my skin with notes of mandarin and iris. I get a sense of sharp citric freshness and sweetness from that, along with an almost undetectable note of clary sage, but that note lasts only for a nanosecond or two. The opening smells a little fuzzy at the same time from the iris, and then it starts to take on a cool and cold sort of a tone, but this soon smooths out. There's a tiny hint of tonka bean hidden in the opening too. Very quickly after that initial opening, I detect the first impressions of a leather note starting to take shape in the background, just as that mandarin note starts to fade a little. But very quickly the leather note with the iris and tonka bean starts to gain clarity and take shape. It's also worth noting that it's a little powdery in its sweetness too at this point. But as the fragrance starts to dry down, it becomes a bit sweeter and less powdery. The iris, tonka, vanilla leather accord really comes to the fore and expresses itself fully, in quite a proud, almost regal manner. This is what I experience for most of the lifespan of the fragrance. It's also worth noting that as the dry down phase continues, it becomes a little gourmandish too, but without being sickly sweet. It skews a touch towards the feminine in the dying embers of the dry down, but maybe because the iris and vanilla are the last notes standing. But overall, this is a very well blended and nicely balanced fragrance. On skin, I got a much more enjoyable experience of the fragrance and a much clearer sense of the notes than just on a blotter. For example, the leather note on the blotter was far less noticeable than on my skin, the mandarin was much sharper and lasted for longer, and it also lacked the powdery sweetness which I got when I went straight to skin. The iris is also more apparent quicker on skin than on a blotter. In terms of age range, I'd have to say that this is maybe best suited for a smartly dressed guy aged anywhere between 20 and 40 years old. I think that Valentino Uomo Intense would make a great fragrance for the winter and for nights out too, be it casual or formal occasions. Now, for my final ratings on this fragrance. Projection. Projection was really good for the first 4.5 hours or so, then settled in much closer to my skin quite quickly after that, so projection gets a 3.5 out of 5. Sillage. Now, the sillage was noticeable around me for almost 4 hours before becoming a little bit more toned down, so the sillage gets a 3.5 out of 5. Longevity. The total lifespan of this fragrance on my skin was around 10 hours or so. So for the longevity, I have to give it a 4 out of 5. And finally, for the overall smell. Overall, Valentino's Uomo Intense Eau de Parfum is a really nice, really enjoyable fragrance. I think it's modern, sleek, and well crafted. And for me personally, the most enjoyable parts of the fragrance were the opening and the dry down of this. My only one real gripe about this fragrance though is that I just wished it performed a little better on my skin. But yeah, overall, for the overall smell, I have to give it a 4 out of 5. So there you go, that's been my quick little review of Uomo Intense Eau de Parfum by Valentino. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. Cheers for watching and take care.